You speak, but no one truly hears you. You act, yet nothing seems to shift. You think, but your mind feels like fog. It's not that you're weak, it's that the world is drowning in noise, and somewhere along the way, you forgot how to be still. We live in an age where people talk endlessly but rarely say anything of value, where reaction is praised over reflection, and where speed is mistaken for intelligence. The loudest voice often passes for wisdom, and action without direction is worshipped as strength. But real power doesn't shout. It doesn't panic. It doesn't race to be seen. Real power pauses. It listens. It strikes only when it's time, clean, calm, and precise. And if you've ever felt overlooked, silenced, or stuck in the noise, if hesitation has ever cost you a moment that mattered, this is where everything changes. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to speak with intention so that every word lands, how to think with clarity so your mind becomes your ally, and how to act with discipline so your presence commands without saying a word. This isn't hype, it's training. It's Stoic philosophy turned into mental discipline, built for a world that wants you distracted, emotional, and unsure. But not anymore. Take a breath. Stay here with me. Subscribe if you're ready to stop reacting and start leading. And if you've ever found strength in stillness, share your moment below. Because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs more men who know how to use their silence. 1. Speak only when your words outweigh the silence. Not every moment demands your voice. In fact, some of the most powerful moments in life demand your silence. We've been conditioned to believe that constant speaking equals intelligence, that having a quick reply is a sign of strength, and that silence is weakness. But silence, when chosen deliberately, is one of the greatest demonstrations of inner strength. In a world where people talk to be noticed, to defend, to impress, or to win, the rare person who pauses before speaking commands a different kind of respect, the kind that isn't demanded but earned. You don't need to fill every gap with words. The space between thoughts is where real understanding lives. The person who speaks out of impulse is often driven by ego, fear, or the need to be validated. The one who speaks with restraint, however, shows clarity of thought and self-control, two cornerstones of Stoic discipline. And in those moments where you resist the urge to speak, you're not losing your voice, you're sharpening it. Because when your words finally come, they hit harder, land deeper, and carry the weight of intention. There is discipline in choosing when to remain quiet, and there is courage in not reacting just because you can. That pause, that sacred space between impulse and action, is where power is built. When you speak only when your words outweigh the silence, you're not suppressing your truth, you're refining it. You're filtering out the noise of emotional reactivity, internal chaos, and shallow thinking, and what remains is something pure, a voice that is grounded, measured, and respected. Most people speak to avoid discomfort. Silence makes them nervous. They fear being misunderstood or overlooked, so they fill the void with noise. But that fear reveals dependence, the need to be constantly seen, heard, and acknowledged. Stoicism teaches the opposite. It teaches us to seek solitude without insecurity, to value listening more than responding, and to recognize that silence isn't absence, it's presence amplified. In silence, you hear not just what others are saying, but also what your mind is doing. You slow down, you think more clearly, you see through the layers of your reaction. And this is where speaking with purpose begins. Not in the mouth, but in the mind. When you think clearly, your words become sharper. You don't ramble, you don't over-explain, you don't speak to fill space. You speak because what you say needs to be said. You become a person whose words have weight. Not because they're loud, but because they're true, intentional, and disciplined. You may find yourself in conversations where emotions run high, where people raise their voices, interrupt, or try to provoke a reaction. The average person bites back. The strong person stays composed. You're not here to win arguments. You're here to preserve your peace and direct your energy where it truly matters. Speaking only when your words are more valuable than silence isn't passive. It's tactical. It's a form of self-defense in a world addicted to overreaction. Let's make it clear. This doesn't mean silence in the face of injustice or avoidance when clarity is needed. It means choosing your moments wisely. It means understanding the energy of a room, reading what isn't being said, and deciding when your voice serves a purpose greater than your pride. When your silence is thoughtful and your speech is intentional, people lean in when you speak, because they've learned that when you talk, it's worth hearing. This is how respect is built without demanding it. This is how you separate noise from the signal, reaction from reason, and motion from meaning. Speaking with purpose in a world of performance is rare, and that rarity makes your voice 10 times more powerful. Before your next conversation, before your next post, before your next heated reply, stop. Ask yourself, do my words carry more truth, clarity, and usefulness than the silence I'm about to break? If not, wait. Let your silence speak for you. Let your restraint protect your peace. And when it's time to speak, speak like someone who has nothing to prove but everything to offer. Because the Stoic doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks when his words have the power to shift the air around him. And that's not just strength, that's mastery. 2. Clarity of thought is a superpower in a world clouded by noise. Thinking clearly is no longer common, it's a superpower. In today's world, you're surrounded by more information than ever before. Opinions, headlines, notifications, messages, arguments, distractions, all pouring into your mind, demanding a reaction. But most people don't think anymore. They consume, they repeat, and they react. Their mind becomes a mirror, reflecting whatever is loudest at the moment. They don't choose their thoughts, they absorb them. When your thinking is cluttered, your actions are automatic, your emotions are unstable, and your voice loses all weight. Clarity of thought is what separates direction from distraction. It's the ability to know what matters and what doesn't. It's the difference between chasing everything and choosing wisely. When your thinking is clear, your decisions become faster, your speech becomes sharper, and your presence becomes unmistakable. You stop being pulled into every conflict. You stop defending things you don't truly believe. You stop wasting time on people, ideas, and impulses that have no place in your life. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being deliberate. A mind clouded by confusion cannot create peace. A mind ruled by emotion cannot produce strength. The Stoics understood this. They trained their minds like warriors, trained their bodies, not for speed, but for stillness. Not to impress, but to endure. They believed clarity wasn't something you waited for. It was something you earned through discipline and awareness. Imagine this. You're sitting at your desk late at night, overwhelmed by a choice. A job offer in another city that promises more money, but also more stress. Your friends say go. Your family says stay. Social media says to chase the dream. But none of them live your life. And if your mind isn't clear, you'll move based on noise, not values. You'll end up somewhere you never wanted to be, simply because the voices outside were louder than the voice within. But when your thinking is trained, you don't need noise to tell you what to do. You return to your principles. You ask sharper questions. Is this aligned with who I want to become? Does this decision move me toward peace or away from it? You filter every input through stillness. You stop rushing to decide, and instead, you slow down to understand. That is clarity, and clarity is power. Clarity is not about having all the answers. It's about knowing what deserves your attention. It's about understanding that the mind is like water. Agitated, it reflects nothing. Still, it reflects everything. Most people never stop long enough to see what their mind is doing. They think in fragments. They jump from idea to idea. They mistake movement for progress, busyness for productivity, and noise for importance. But a clear mind doesn't chase, it attracts. A clear mind doesn't argue, it acts. And this isn't just theory. Try it. Before responding to your next heated message, pause. Before committing to something out of pressure, pause. Before speaking out of habit, pause. In that space, ask, what am I really thinking, and why? You'll be shocked how many of your thoughts don't belong to you. They're reactions, not reflections. Conditioning, not conviction. And when you strip that away, you'll find what's actually yours. Your standards, your priorities, your truth. The Stoics didn't become wise by accident. They practiced solitude. They wrote down their thoughts to catch their own mental traps. They avoided unnecessary conversations. They made time to reflect daily, not to overthink, but to clean the lens they saw life. That's how they kept their composure in chaos. How they spoke when it mattered, and how they moved with certainty while others drowned in hesitation. In a distracted world, mental clarity is rebellion. It's strength, it's rare, It's how you rise without shouting, how you lead without forcing, and how you stay rooted while everything else shakes. Because when you think clearly, you see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. You recognize patterns, you make sharper moves. You no longer allow the world to hijack your attention or your peace. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pressured, or pulled in 10 directions at once, don't look outward. Look inward, create space, let the dust settle, and from that stillness, let the next move rise naturally. Because clarity doesn't scream, it whispers. And if you're quiet enough, it always knows what to do. In a world clouded by noise, a clear mind doesn't just help you survive. It makes you impossible to manipulate, unshakable under pressure, and deeply respected by those who recognize the power of a man who truly thinks for himself. 3. Your speech trains your thinking. Every word you speak is a mirror of your mind and a command to it. The way you talk doesn't just reflect your thoughts, it programs them. Speak with clarity and strength, and over time, your thinking sharpens. Speak with chaos, with doubt, with scattered intention, and your thoughts begin to match. This is not about sounding polished or eloquent. It's about realizing that your voice isn't just heard by others, it's heard by you. And what you say repeatedly becomes what you believe, how you process, and how you show up in the world. The Stoics knew this. They guarded their speech not out of fear, but because they understood its power. Marcus Aurelius wrote in silence but spoke with weight. Epictetus reminded his students that conversation was a training ground for the soul. Because language is not just for expression, it's for alignment. When your words are clean, precise, and purposeful, your thoughts must rise to meet that standard. But when your speech is lazy, reactive, or unfiltered, your mind slips into that same undisciplined state. Speak like a victim, and your brain adapts to helplessness. Speak like a leader, and your mind begins to organize itself around clarity, calm, and control. You've seen it happen. Someone complains all day, and by nightfall, even their body feels drained, not because the world crushed them, but because their words trained their thoughts to expect suffering. On the other hand, someone speaks with direction, cuts through noise, says only what matters, and their presence changes the room. That kind of speech isn't about volume. It's about mental clarity being transmitted through every sentence. Now, here's the hard truth. Most people don't notice how they speak. They fill space with filler words, with vague phrases, with apologies that aren't needed. They undermine their own ideas before they finish the sentence. They say, "I'm not sure, but maybe," or "I could be wrong," or "I guess it's kind of like," and slowly, their thinking conforms to that same uncertainty. Their thoughts lose structure, their beliefs lose their spine, their mind forgets what conviction feels like because their mouth never practiced it. But you can reverse that. You can train clarity the same way you train a muscle. Start by slowing down. Speak 10% slower than you normally would. Pause when your sentence ends. Breathe before you answer. These aren't tricks, they're signals. When you slow your voice, you give your brain time to process it deliberately. You make space for insight to surface instead of letting habit hijack your mouth. Over time, that pause becomes sacred. It becomes a ritual of restraint, presence, and control. And from that place, your words shift. They land. They lead. There's power in precise language. Say exactly what you mean. Strip away the noise. Avoid over-explaining. Refuse to justify truth to those who twist it. Speak once, clearly, and move forward. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you centered. Because people don't follow noise, they follow clarity. They follow those who speak like they've thought before they open their mouth. They follow those who carry their voice like a sword, not a scattershot. And more importantly, when you speak this way, your own mind begins to follow you. Not the world, not your past, not your anxiety, you. There will be moments where your emotions rise, where you want to lash out, interrupt, or dominate a conversation. But those are the moments you must train your speech most. Because words said in reaction always weaken you. They either expose your instability or dilute your message. The Stoic doesn't speak to win arguments. He speaks to align his world with his principles. He doesn't use speech to dominate, but to direct. Every sentence is an act of precision. Every word is shaped by intention. Through that discipline, he shapes his own mind to remain calm in storms, focused under fire, and clear when others collapse in confusion. Try this. For the next 3 days, record your speech patterns. Not with a mic, with awareness. Notice when you repeat phrases out of habit, when you use 5 words instead of 1, when you apologize for thinking differently. Catch those moments not with guilt, but with curiosity. Then cut the noise. Speak slower, fewer words, more meaning. You'll feel your thoughts begin to tighten. You'll see your mind straighten its spine, because your brain is always listening, and it listens hardest when you speak. In the end, your speech is not decoration, it's direction. You're always teaching your mind how to process the world. You're either training clarity or confusion, command or chaos, purpose or passivity. So the next time you open your mouth, ask yourself this: am I reinforcing my power or handing it away sentence by sentence? Speak like someone your mind wants to follow. When your voice is clear, calm, and intentional, your thoughts will rise to meet it. And that alignment is what makes a man unshakable. 4. The pause is your anchor in a world of noise. In a world that rushes you to speak, to act, to react, you win the moment by pausing. That single breath, that 1-second delay, might be the most powerful choice you ever make. Because in that small space, you reclaim your mind. You separate stimulus from response. You anchor yourself before the storm decides what you'll do next. Most people live in reaction. A word is said and they reply without thinking. An insult lands and they strike back. A demand arises and they scramble to meet it. They move without direction, respond without clarity, and speak without weight because they never stop long enough to choose. The pause changes that. It's a break in the cycle. A moment where you say, I will not be ruled by this emotion. I will not be moved by this noise. It is not hesitation. It is strength under control. The Stoics understood that restraint is not weakness, it's power refined. To pause is to hold the sword steady, not because you're unsure, but because you're deliberate. The man who can stay still when the world provokes him is not passive. He is precise. He understands that his response is a reflection of his discipline, not his ego. And the pause, however brief, is where that discipline is forged. There is a kind of silence that speaks louder than fury, a kind of calm that exposes the chaos in others. When you choose to pause, you strip the moment of its power to control you. You step out of the current. You become the observer instead of the reactor. That shift is where clarity begins. It's where your thoughts become visible, your feelings become manageable, and your next move becomes intentional. Without the pause, you become a slave to impulse. You say things you don't mean. You act in ways you later regret. You give away control because you never took the time to hold it. But when you practice the pause, just for a second, you interrupt that pattern. You give yourself the space to respond with presence instead of panic, with purpose instead of pride. This habit is not natural at first. Your body will want to speak. Your pride will want to defend. Your fear will want to run. But the pause is not for the body, it's for the mind. It's a training ground for self-command. It's the space where you remind yourself that emotion is not a leader, it's a signal. And not every signal deserves a response. The man who can pause before he speaks will say things that carry weight. The man who can pause before he acts will never have to apologize for moving too fast. The pause slows down time, not because the world slows down, but because you stop letting the world drag you. And in that stillness, you think, you assess, you sharpen your perception. You control your inner world so the outer one doesn't control you. The power of the pause doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from mastering how you engage with it. You're not here to suppress your voice. You're here to make sure it's worth hearing. You're not here to delay every decision. You're here to remove the noise that clouds it. The Stoic does not freeze in the face of pressure. He pauses so that when he moves, it is with clarity, calm, and consequence. When the world pushes you to speak fast, answer now, and react first, that's your signal to slow down, to anchor, to step back into command. The pause is where strength collects. It's where chaos breaks. It's where your presence becomes undeniable. Because while everyone else is scrambling to be heard, the man who waits, who thinks, who holds, he's the one everyone watches when he finally moves. So make this your practice. In every interaction, in every challenge, in every rising emotion, pause. Not forever, just long enough to return to yourself. Just long enough to make sure your next word, your next move, your next step isn't driven by noise, but led by your inner compass. That's where power lies, and that's where you belong. 5. To speak like a sage, you must live like one. When you speak, do your words make people stop, or do they just fill space? Because the truth is, wisdom isn't something you memorize. It's something you embody. You don't earn a voice that carries weight by quoting books or rehearsing phrases. You earn it by how you live when no one's watching. If your life lacks discipline, your words will lack depth. If your actions contradict your values, your voice will ring hollow. To speak like a sage, you must live like one, steadily, simply, deliberately. People can feel it. They hear it in your tone, not just your sentences. They sense it in your presence, not just your posture. And they can tell immediately whether your words come from real experience or just recycled inspiration. The Stoics knew this long before we did. They didn't write to impress. They wrote to reflect. They didn't talk to be praised. They talked to clarify the truth. Every word was a product of a life tested by discomfort, purified by solitude, and sharpened by observation. Their speech wasn't decoration. It was the residue of a lived philosophy. That's what most people miss. They want to sound wise without doing the inner work. They want to inspire without being tested. But speech is not a shortcut. It's a mirror. It reflects who you are, not who you pretend to be. If your days are built on avoidance, on reaction, on chasing validation, your words will sound just like that. Scattered, unstable, inflated. But if you live your life with restraint, presence, and purpose, your speech won't need decoration. It will already feel complete. The Stoic doesn't try to sound profound. He lives so intentionally that when he finally speaks, the world leans in. He lives slowly so he sees clearly. He listens often so he understands deeply. He doesn't need to prove anything. His discipline proves it for him. And when he speaks, it's not about being right, it's about being true. That kind of speech doesn't echo, it resonates. You might think wisdom means having all the answers, but the sage knows the opposite. He's curious, he asks more than he asserts, he observes more than he reacts. He knows that silence is often smarter than speed, and simplicity is more powerful than complexity. His clarity doesn't come from knowing more, it comes from needing less. That's what makes his words unforgettable. Because they're not dressed up, they're distilled. In a world addicted to projection, to opinions, to performance, stillness becomes a rebellion. Simplicity becomes a weapon. Living slowly becomes a competitive edge. When your life is rooted in purpose, your words naturally carry intention. You won't need to raise your voice to be heard. You won't need to argue to feel right. You won't need to speak often to leave an impact. Because the strength of your presence will do half the talking before you even say a word. But you have to earn that. You have to live it. You have to build your days on inner order, not external noise. You have to practice what you say in private long before you say it out loud. You have to let go of the need to impress and focus instead on becoming real. When your values become habits and your habits shape your identity, your words will start to mean something. Not because you forced them to, but because you lived them first. So if you want to speak like a sage, don't chase clever quotes. Chase clarity. Don't collect knowledge. Apply it. Don't pretend to be calm. Learn how to be still when the storm hits. Your voice doesn't come from what you know. It comes from how you move when it matters. Every sentence is more than sound. It's a reflection of whether or not you've done the work to stay centered when things fall apart. The most powerful speech doesn't demand attention. It earns it by being grounded in a life of quiet discipline. That's the kind of voice people remember. Not the loudest, not the fastest, but the one that spoke less, thought more, and lived every word before saying it. So the next time you feel the urge to speak just to fill the silence, just to sound smart, or just to win, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking from experience, or am I escaping something? Then return to your life. Simplify it, strengthen it, and let your words be the echo of a life well lived. Because only those who walk the path with intention have the right to guide others through it. And when you live like that, your silence teaches, your presence speaks, and your words become timeless. 6. Your restraint is your armor. Your silence is your sword. True strength doesn't explode, it endures. Restraint is not a weakness hiding behind silence. It is armor forged from discipline. It shields you from impulsive reactions, from the urge to defend your ego, from the need to always be right. While others flinch at provocation, raise their voice, or rush to prove themselves, the one who remains still, composed, silent, unmoved, commands more than attention. He commands respect. Because restraint isn't passive, it's purposeful. It means you are in control, not just of your words, but of yourself. There is power in holding back, in not saying the thing that would feel good to say in the moment, in not responding to every slight or insult. Knowing that silence doesn't make you smaller, it makes you sharper. That silence can speak louder than anything you could shout. The Stoics didn't glorify reaction. They trained for calm. They prepared not to be shaken. And when provoked, they did not answer with rage. They answered with presence. That's what made their words, when they chose to speak, cut deeper than 1,000 angry arguments. We live in a world obsessed with immediacy. People race to respond, to be seen, to win every debate. But noise doesn't make your voice valuable. The reaction doesn't make your stance stronger. What matters is timing, precision, intent. A sword swung wildly does more damage than good. But a sword drawn in silence, held steady and released at the right moment, that's what leaves a mark. That's what ends battles without saying a word. And yet, most people are afraid to be silent. They think if they don't respond, they'll lose. If they don't speak up, they'll seem weak. If they don't retaliate, they'll be disrespected. But the man who cannot control his tongue becomes a puppet of his emotions. The man who cannot stand still becomes a slave to the environment. The man who always needs to explain himself, defend himself, assert himself, has no center. His identity depends on approval. His peace is fragile. His words are hollow. Restraint changes this. It flips the power dynamic. It puts you back in the driver's seat. It forces others to confront their own noise while you stand in quiet command. When you stop reacting to every challenge, people notice. They adjust. They soften. Because silence unsettles those who seek chaos. It disarms those who feed on conflict. It reveals their lack of control and your depth of it. But this isn't about being silent all the time. It's about choosing your battles with wisdom. About understanding that not every confrontation is worth your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. And that peace is something you protect, not something you prove. The Stoic doesn't avoid truth. He speaks it when it's needed, not when he's triggered. He isn't quiet out of fear, he's quiet out of clarity. So the next time someone challenges you, offends you, or tries to pull you into their storm, pause. Let your breath be your shield. Let your silence speak your intention. And when you decide to respond, do it from stillness, not from ego. Because a voice that rises from silence always hits deeper than one fueled by rage. And the one who can stay calm under fire doesn't just survive, he wins. In moments of pressure, your restraint is your armor. It protects you from saying what you'll regret, from doing what you'll undo, from becoming someone you are not. And when you pair that restraint with intentional silence, your presence becomes undeniable. People listen when you speak, not because you speak often, but because you speak with meaning. That's how the Stoic wields power, not through dominance, but through discipline, not through reaction, but through reason, not through volume, but through truth. His silence becomes his sword. His calm cuts through the chaos. His presence is proof that he doesn't need to fight for control because he already owns himself. So start here. Let go of the need to be loud. Stop trying to win every exchange. Trade reaction for reflection. Protect your peace like armor. And speak only when silence has done its job. Because when you master your restraint and your silence becomes deliberate, you no longer need to prove your strength. You become it. 7. Between emotion and action, there is power. There is a moment, brief, quiet, almost invisible, between the rise of emotion and the decision to act. Most people miss it. They feel anger and they lash out. They feel fear and they retreat. They feel insulted and they strike back. Their emotions lead and their actions follow blindly. But if you can pause in that space, even for one breath, you reclaim something most never even realize they've lost. Control. The Stoics trained for this space. They understood that emotions are not enemies. They are signals, neither good nor bad, just information. What you do with that information, however, defines your strength. Power is not found in suppression nor in indulgence. It lives in the ability to stand still while the fire burns inside and still choose your next move with intention. That's the difference between being ruled and being responsible, between chaos and clarity, between regret and resolve. You are not your anger. You are not your frustration. You are not your fear. These are states of the body passing through. But if you let them drive the wheel, they will take you places your values would never choose. They will ruin conversations, damage relationships, and sabotage progress. All because you gave away the one thing you were supposed to protect: your response. In that small space between feeling and reacting, you have a chance to think, to return to your principles, to ask yourself one powerful question: is this reaction aligned with the man I'm becoming, or just a reflex of the man I used to be? That question shifts everything. It interrupts the pattern. It lets the higher part of you speak before the lower one acts. And the more you practice listening in that space, the more natural it becomes. Eventually your pause becomes armor, not to block emotion, but to guide it. This is not about emotional suppression, it's about emotional command. The Stoics never denied the existence of feeling. They denied its right to rule them. They practiced the art of emotional distance, not from life, but from reaction. Because in reaction you are weak, in restraint you are free. The man who pauses, breathes, and moves with clarity becomes immovable, not because nothing affects him, but because nothing owns him. You don't need to fight every battle that emotion invites. You don't need to respond to every provocation, every insult, every moment that tries to pull you out of character. Sometimes the strongest move is no move at all. Sometimes power looks like staying quiet, letting the wave pass, and acting only when you've regained stillness. Because action without reflection is noise. But action after pause, that is precision. There will always be something to trigger you. People will test your boundaries. Life will throw unexpected punches. You'll be tired, stressed, and distracted, and emotions will surge. That's not failure. That's normal. The only failure is reacting like you have no choice. Because you do. And it starts with recognizing the space. That half second of awareness when your body wants to speak but your mind says wait. That's where discipline is built. That's where the work is done. That's where the Stoics live. Every time you choose to pause, you become stronger. Every time you wait before speaking, breathe before responding, and reflect before deciding, you reinforce a new identity. One of power, clarity, and unshakable self-respect. And it doesn't require perfection, it just requires presence. Because presence is the gatekeeper of power. It's what lets you respond instead of react, lead instead of following, direct your life instead of being dragged through it. So remember this, emotion is not the enemy, it's a compass. But it's your reason, your clarity, that must hold the map. Let emotion signal but never steer. Let it inform but never dictate. Let it rise but never erupt. The space between emotion and action is where men are made or unmade. It's where consequences are created or avoided. It's where your future is shaped, one breath, one choice, one moment at a time. The next time you feel something rise, stop. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to wait. In that silence, in that pause, in that brief act of stillness, you're doing something most people never master. You're choosing your response. And choice, in a reactive world, is the ultimate form of power. 8. Presence gives you the edge in every interaction. Presence isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most grounded one. When you're fully present, mind clear, attention undivided, silence anchored, people feel it. They don't always know why, but they stop. They listen. And in a world addicted to speed, distraction, and performance, your stillness stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. You don't have to say much. You just have to be there, fully. Not scrolling, not planning your next sentence, not caught in your head. Just here. The Stoics understood that presence was power, not because it controls others, but because it commands yourself. When your mind isn't jumping between worries and distractions, when your eyes meet with intention, when your listening is deep, not just polite, you don't chase influence, you become it. Presence is not posture, it's not tone, it's not clever words. Its attention is sharpened by discipline and silence. And when you develop that kind of presence, you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. They'll feel it before you speak. People crave to be seen, to be heard, to feel that the person in front of them is truly with them, not just near them. And when you offer that, without agenda, without impatience, without wandering eyes, you immediately rise above the noise. Not by force, but by focus. That's the edge. Not charisma, not performance, but real, rooted attention. That's what changes the temperature in a room. That's what makes people trust you, respect you, and follow you. But presence requires training. It's not just about putting your phone away or making eye contact. It's about cleaning the clutter in your mind so that your attention isn't divided before you even open your mouth. You can't be present for others if you're not even present within yourself. That's why the Stoics made reflection a daily habit, not to escape the world, but to return to it more centered. When you know what matters, you stop being pulled by what doesn't. When you clear the noise inside, you stop reacting to the noise outside. And it's not just about conversation. Presence gives you the edge in decision-making, in conflict, in leadership. Because when you're here, not 10 steps ahead or 5 worries behind, you see things clearly. You hear what others miss. You respond with depth, not habit. You don't rush to fill silence because you're not afraid of it. You don't overcompensate because you're not trying to prove anything. You just show up, steady, observant, ready. When 2 people speak, only one truly listens. When 10 people enter a room, only one holds it. That one is not always the most experienced or most skilled. It's often the one who carries calm. The one who makes others feel safe simply by being fully engaged. That's not talent. That's training. And it begins by honoring the moment in front of you as if it's the only one that matters. Because it is. Presence is also how you learn. You can't gain wisdom if you're not paying attention. You can't connect the dots if you're not here to see them. You miss insights, cues, and moments of clarity when your mind is somewhere else. Presence is the lens through which all wisdom passes. Without it, even the best information becomes noise. With it, even the smallest moment becomes meaningful. And presence is rare now, which is why it's so powerful. We've traded attention for convenience. We skim, we scroll, we reply, half aware, half invested. But presence is the opposite of that. It's radical attention. It's saying this moment deserves all of me. It's choosing to respond, not just react. To connect, not just communicate. To witness, not just wait your turn. So make it a practice. Every time you speak to someone, ask yourself, am I really here? Every time you walk into a room, remind yourself, your mind arrives first. Every time you sit in silence, train your thoughts to stay. Because presence isn't just something you bring to others, it's something you build within. It's a habit, a posture, a quiet kind of power. And when it becomes who you are, not just something you try to do, you'll notice something shift. People open up more. Conflict dissolves quickly. Opportunities find you, not because you chased them, but because you were ready. You showed up while others were somewhere else. And in the end, that's what gives you the edge. Because in every interaction, it's not how much you say, it's how deeply you're there. And presence, when fully developed, speaks volumes without a single word. In a world flooded with noise, true strength lies in the quiet moments when you choose to pause. The lessons shared throughout this journey, whether it's understanding the power of restraint, the importance of clarity in thought, or the quiet strength that comes with true presence, are not just ideas. They are practices, each one designed to help you regain control over your emotions and actions. To speak with purpose, you must live with intention. Every word you speak carries the weight of your life, of your actions. When your words align with your values, they hold more power than any argument or debate. Remember, your restraint is your armor. Every moment of silence is a sword, waiting to strike with precision when necessary. It's not the speed of your reaction, but the deliberate choice of your response that commands true power. The pause, the space between emotion and action, is where your power lives. In this pause, you control your response, your future, and your peace. It's in this space that you cultivate emotional mastery, and with this mastery comes clarity. As you practice this every day, you build the strength to resist impulsive reactions and focus on purposeful actions. As you move forward, take these lessons with you. Practice them daily. Each time you feel provoked, take a step back. Breathe. Listen. Speak with meaning and act with intention. In this, you will find the true power to lead not just others but yourself. I encourage you to share your experiences in the comments below. What has been your most difficult challenge in applying these principles? How do you practice restraint and presence in your life? Let's learn from each other and continue to grow.